I feel like diet culture sets you up to never be good enough.
Did you burn 500 calories on the treadmill today? No? Me either.
I mean, anybody can sit with us. We're just really not about diet culture.
But literally, happiness doesn't come from a low-calorie, high-intensity life. I actually do like carrots.
I do too. They're my favorite.
Welcome to the Fit Fueled Free podcast.
So basically, diets suck. Hey guys, welcome to episode 52. I'm Jenna.
I'm Danielle, and today we are going to be covering part 1 of our 2-part episode on alcohol, and today's episode is going to be a very long monologue of me talking about my relationship with alcohol and what led me to giving up drinking for a year and what that journey has been like and the things that I have gained from it. So we're super excited for you to hear this, and our next episode for the second part will be more on alcohol and diet culture and exercise and alcohol and just how it can be part of a healthy lifestyle, just so you know what's coming after that. Yeah, so I am gonna dive in to start off with this because if anyone follows me on Instagram or is one of my friends or family members, I have been sober for 10 months now because I have had a pretty tumultuous relationship with alcohol throughout my life, ever since I was 20 and started drinking socially, and things kind of got to a head for me, and I realized that in order to do some of the work on myself and get to a better place, I needed to remove alcohol from my life. So it's a little bit interesting of a situation just because I don't have alcoholism in the sense that I don't have a dependency on alcohol. So like we've had alcohol in our house ever since I stopped drinking, and I've been to social events and I've been to a handful of parties since I gave up drinking, and it's not like I am struggling to stay away from it. It's more just the way that I use alcohol and the way that my body reacts to drinking, and just kind of the effects that has on your life when you don't handle it very well. So I'm being like way involved into my personal life in this conversation just because from having a backseat on not drinking and just watching some of the tendencies that people have and kind of absorbing and really thinking about like what does alcohol like mean for me and what does it mean for people I know and people I don't know, just lots of thoughts and conversations that I've had. I think that there are a lot more people who have an issue with drinking that again may not be alcoholism, but it's definitely not like a healthy behavior for their life, as much as I've seen people who do just have a couple drinks here and there and it literally means nothing more than that. And so I'm just being fully transparent, and it may come across that I am anti-alcohol, and I just want to be straightforward that that isn't my stance. I actually do plan on reincorporating alcohol to some degree in my life moving forward, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I anticipate that looking like. But just trying to, kind of call it what it is, because I know I'm not the only person that has had experiences like this. All right, so when I started drinking when I was 20, just here and there at parties, my tolerance, as I'm sure anyone drinking for the first time, is pretty low. But if I had a couple of drinks, my body was telling me to stop because I was falling down without like passing out. So I would just be like drinking and then I'd be walking and all of a sudden I'm just laying on the floor. So like I'm not entirely sure what was going on, but my body was just like literally like shutting down on me. But like I wasn't vomiting, I wasn't passing out. Like I remember these instances happening. Like I was fully coherent. But I just was like, this doesn't happen to anyone else. Like kind of laughed it off. Like other people laughed it off, some, but I just kind of pushed through it. And I was like, oh no, like this isn't a big deal. And I just continued to binge drink with everyone else at parties. And so that was kind of my first sign that I know some people have an allergy or a reaction to alcohol, but I think like from the get-go, my body was pretty much like, please don't do this. But I just really didn't care because I just wanted to fit in with everyone else. And because I didn't drink in high school and I just was like, wanted to be social and make friends. And that's what people did on the weekends. So that was the first clue that I had. But I also have a tendency when I'm drinking to have pretty severe emotional breakdowns. And it's kind of like a joke amongst my close friends because everyone has seen it happen, who has been drinking with me at least probably 3 times is all you need. And you've seen it happen. But just because of some of the inside work that I've been doing in therapy and just continue to do, and as life, the ups and downs that you have, drinking was intriguing because it was like an escape from those problems. But as soon as I hit like a point of, I'm assuming my BAC was hitting a certain level, and then my emotional capacity, just something would happen. I would throw up, somebody would hurt my feelings, something would happen, and then I'm just sobbing, like whether or not real tears are coming out of my eyes. I just would cry for hours, and as far as I know, I just repeat the same several things over and over, and it's just like it's a mess. It's annoying for myself, it's annoying for everyone, because that's not the point of social drinking, is to end up in a state of despair. So that is an issue that I've been dealing with ever since I was 20. So this has been going on for 8 years. It didn't happen every time I drank. There's been times where I drank socially all day long and literally nothing happened, but it just was so there's no exact reasoning as to why it was going on. And so it was really unpredictable as far as what kind of night I was going to have if I was drinking. But I just was continually leaving it up to fate as to what my end goal was going to end up being that night. So that was something that was definitely a big reason to move away from that behavior, because it's very exhausting to go through that and then, wake up the next day and you don't really know fully what happened. And then you have to text people like, hey, what did I do? Like, I'm so sorry. It's sad. It's just a very sad situation. And I think from the outside, most people didn't seem to realize how awful it was for me. Like a lot of people laugh at that kind of thing or just kind of brush it off, and that's fine. Like, I'm glad that people weren't like, sitting me down in the corner like, you need to stop drinking, because I probably wouldn't have responded to that very well. This had to be a decision that I made for myself. But even in my own relationship, just some choices that I've made, and just not having the most respect for my husband that I want to have as a wife because of my self-destructive tendencies. That was another driving factor for me. Like, I want to have a healthy relationship. And even though I don't have a dependency on alcohol, my desire to be getting extremely drunk, for fun, when that's not something my husband does, thankfully, it just wasn't serving us either in our relationship. And there never was any pressure from him whatsoever. But that was a big motivator for me that I think was different than just when I was single or not yet married. So those are a few of the reasons. But also, with my mental health diagnoses of having PTSD, and I have a history of anxiety and depression as well, which are symptoms of PTSD, but also co-occurring issues that I struggle with. Oftentimes, for a day or two after I was drinking, I would just be so like distraught. And part of it was trying to pick up the pieces that I had lost from, what had I done the night before, and just trying to make sure, like, did I burn bridges with people? Are my friends still, is everyone okay? Like, did I do anything wrong? But just the general feeling of being so hungover and so drained, it just was very negative for my mental health. And there were times that I had suicidal ideation from drinking as well, just because I was drinking in reaction to something upsetting. And it wasn't even really like a social situation per se, but I was actively like trying to numb my pain. But the drinking caused me to have an even more negative reaction in the moment. And then, once that's going on with you, then that's a lingering issue that you have to resolve. And so that's absolutely a reason, like, if that's going on with anyone, like, that's SOS. You need to stop using alcohol in that way. And when I was in college, I had a evening that I went out with a group of my girlfriends, and through a very strange chain of events, I ended up joining like 3 to 4 different groups of friends, because in Blacksburg, when you're of age to drink, you see the same people. Like, you have groups of people you just run into over and over when you're out, because it's, it's a big school, but it's not a big town. And so I was just finding all these different people, and I'd be like, one friend would go and be like, oh, you're going to stay here. And I just kept getting passed off. And, not to put any of the blame on anyone else, but that's just how the night was flowing. And I ended up alone in a booth. Well, I wasn't alone. I was alone as far as no one that knew me was with me anymore. In this group of guys, I fell asleep, and they proceeded to carry me to their apartment. But I don't know if this is lucky or not, but I threw up and they put me down, and I hit my head a couple times, like on the sidewalk or on the brick wall. And because I was completely just like passed out, and the police officer that was nearby, instead of taking me to jail for public intoxication or whatever, drunk in public, they took me to the hospital because I clearly was not well. And I spent the night there, and because I had vomited a lot, I didn't have to get my stomach pumped or anything, but they just put fluids on me and they let me sleep there, because I couldn't even tell anyone what my name was. They didn't know anything about me, and my phone had turned off. So I was missing. People were looking for me because someone had picked up my phone before I got taken to the hospital and called my in case of emergency contacts, which were my mom and my family friend from home. So they're, alerting my roommate, who's alerting the girls that I went out with that night. And no one has the thought to go look at the hospital, of course. And so I was missing for an entire night. And when I woke up in the morning, I had to search through our database for Find Your Friends through the Virginia Tech online system until I could find anyone who I would be able to call that had their number listed, because my phone was off and or dead, and I had no way to call. I didn't know how to get a hold of anyone to take me home from the hospital. So luckily one of my friends had their numbers posted, and he came and picked me up, and I went home. Well, I went to their apartment for a bit, and then I went home, and I had to call out of work because I didn't have full control over my my body. Like, I was peeing myself. I couldn't move my arms the way that I wanted to, and I just felt like absolute death. And that lasted for 2 days. So that happened my junior year of college, and still I didn't stop drinking. So I guess my point in sharing all of that is I've had some very, very negative experiences with alcohol, and you would think something would have gotten my attention to be like, hey, you should probably stop doing this. But until you find something inside of you worth being better for, it's not going to happen for anyone else. It's not going to happen because of any consequence. At least that wasn't that way for me. And until I realized that I actually wanted better for myself and was willing to do that work, I don't think that behavior was ever going to stop. And so it's just, I don't the majority of people I've talked to about this, don't fully understand. But it was just another way that I've used something that can be perfectly healthy and normal to just avoid and to numb and to escape. And it works, but it doesn't work. For every, step forward that you get from using that by not feeling something for 2 seconds, it's, probably about 5 steps backwards that you're going. And just a pretty negative spiral over the course of several years. And so when I embarked on my journey to give up drinking for a year, I had been with some of my best friends at a football game. We had tailgated, and nothing negative had happened, but that following week, I was traveling for a nutrition conference, and just sitting alone in my car, I was just thinking, I could sit alone in a hotel room drinking wine by myself at night for days, or I could finally own up to the fact that I really got to get out of this pattern and just start now. Because at that, it's a week I hadn't drank anything, and I just felt like it's now or never. And so I called one of my best friends up, and I just asked her, what if I do this? What if I stop drinking? And she's had a couple of kids, so she understands what it's like to exist in life without drinking, because she was forced to stop a couple times for her kids. And I just kind of needed her blessing / encouragement, because I knew that this was going to be something that was going to be a lot to take on. And so when we chatted and I kind of worked up the nerve to go ahead and pull the trigger, I called and texted within the next several hours everyone who is very close with me. So all of my best friends and my brother, just to be look, I am doing this and it's gonna suck, but I have to do it for me. So just, heads up, but also if I'm struggling, why, because I'm giving up something that helps me to cope. And so I just put it all out there on the table. Everyone who mattered knew immediately that I was making that choice. And I think that was something that really helped to hold me accountable in doing so, because I put it out there, and then I posted on Instagram, just again, more accountability, because if it's out there for the world to see, that's just how I am. I'm not going to back down from something I commit myself to, especially just because I know that people, even though I have a small account, connect with me about growth and just life stuff. And I didn't want to disappoint anyone. And so that, I guess, was the thing, is I did have some sense of wanting to be better for others as well, once I had made that choice. So oh my goodness, this is a mouthful of a story. I'm on month 10 today. Is a couple days past that, so only 2 months to go. And at first it was really tough. So I gave up drinking right before Halloween, which is my favorite holiday because I love dressing up. And then, the other holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, all of that was right after. And so I kind of regretted making my decision at that time, just because I chose to back out of going to a Halloween party because I didn't know if I'd be able to continue not drinking if I was in a social situation like that. And then just kind of getting through holiday stress was a bit challenging. And I was angry for a long time, not at anyone else, just about, I felt sorry for myself. Like, I was mad that the other people that I'm close with can drink alcohol and not have these things happen to them. And it just made me feel like, oh, here we go. Here's another thing that's wrong with me, and that I struggle with in life. And I just felt mad at everyone, but not at anyone at the same time. It just was this just genuine sense of anger for several months. And I kind of was trying to navigate, okay, do I talk about the fact that I'm not drinking? Do I not talk about the fact that I'm not drinking? I'm not going to not hang around people who do drink socially. But a good amount of my friends and family did back off of times where I think if I had been like, hey, you want to drink? We would have had one. But because they knew I wasn't, there was less of it in my face, I think, for a while anyway, which was helpful to have that support. So I also really enjoyed the taste of alcohol. And that was something that was frustrating to miss out on, wine tastings and just having seasonal beer and just little things like that, or having, a margarita or an orange crush once summer hit. But I just kept reminding myself, you need this distance, and until you have it, which may be more than a year, you may need more than a year of distance from drinking in order to kind of start over again with, are you able to have a healthy relationship with alcohol moving forward? And I think that was just my biggest thing. Once you get far enough into it, it's okay, well, here we are. So I think over the past 2 to 3 months, I did notice a shift in myself as far as, I had a conversation with one of my best friends. I call all of my close friends my best friends because I have a lot of them, but, I was talking with her about how I just felt really excluded from some things because people were just talking about events that included alcohol. And she just brought to my attention that no one was doing it on purpose because no one really was thinking about it. And that I'm way more in my head about it than anyone else even no one else could care if I ever drank again. But I'm in my head worrying, oh, am I going to lose relationships? Am I going to lose experiences? And she just was like, you've gotten this far without drinking, but I don't think you've actually addressed the mental piece of not drinking. And it was quite a profound statement for me because I was kind of hurt a little bit to be dang, you're right. But in a way that promoted healing and growth, because then I was able to start thinking okay, what evidence do I have that even though this person and I have had experiences that involved alcohol, to think that we don't have a stronger foundation of a relationship, or that I am even the kind of person that can't be social without alcohol, because that isn't even true. About me. I can be social in any situation. And so I just had to kind of do some debunking of these myths that my head was creating. And I think that's when I really started to see that shift. in how I felt. And I also noticed that less and less when something really anxiety provoking or stressful happens that I'm thinking about alcohol. That has started to decrease a bit. That's the most recent change that I've noticed. And I think that's a pretty big difference for 10 months after, this being an 8-year pattern of using alcohol in such a negative way. I feel like I've really had a major shift in my ability to speak and think clearly, because I really felt like, I know like drugs and alcohol can kill your brain cells, but I really felt the effects of that. Like sometimes I just couldn't, like my head just wasn't working. And I think it was from the chronic use of alcohol and the stress that was giving me. And I feel just much more capable of being a person. It just required a lot of overcoming the negative and just feeling like I wanted to get out of my own body at times from the stress and anxiety I felt, and just knowing I gave up this coping mechanism that, take a shot or chug some wine and you won't feel that anymore. And learning to sit through that discomfort has been like the best thing I've learned probably in my life, because there's always going to be discomfort, but realizing that I can't use alcohol for that. And I'm really not condemning someone for being like, oh, I've had a stressful day, let me have a glass of wine. If that's something that's like a literal safe coping like thing, and it's not something you're doing all the time and doesn't cause you to do anything, reactive, or it's not getting in the way of your functioning, like you can do that. That's okay. If that really feels right for you, I'm not going to judge you, but that's a behavior that I just can't, because I am a chronically stressed out person. And so, to be honest, if I ever was like not actively working on that or thinking about it and like checking in on my intentions, no matter what situation, alcohol provided a great way to escape, even if it was in the form of a celebration or anything. And it was, really being used that way. So it's hard. And I can't speak to having an addiction to alcohol and like going through withdrawal, or those things. I just can speak to the side of, like I said, missing out on a coping mechanism and feeling kind of out of place for a bit, but that has gotten a lot better. And so I've started getting a lot of questions about like, what am I going to do now? And originally, before COVID, we were supposed to be going to Germany in September for Oktoberfest, and I had decided I was going to drink again. And I think it's probably a blessing that didn't happen. I'm not saying I'm glad COVID hit, but just that we're not going on that trip, because I think I would have been fooling myself that I could like walk into a situation like that after a year of not drinking and not just like be like, oh, well, when in Rome, and just completely go back into that binge drinking behavior. And then, turn around, there's the holidays. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, but now that I've had more time to think about it, I did feel a sense of relief, because I don't think that would have been the best thing for me. It just was honestly like a timing thing with a trip that we had planned a long time ago. So when I do reintroduce alcohol, I have a feeling that my tolerance is going to be, negative anyway. So I don't anticipate needing to drink much. Like I had gotten a little bit more of a tolerance where I could even tolerate enough alcohol to cause me any problems. I'm thinking that kind of is going to take care of itself, as far as like even feeling effects from it. But I also know that I don't want to use alcohol for coping when I'm feeling anxious or stressed. I don't want to be participating in drinking. Even like I said, it is a celebration. If that is going on and I'm feeling like I need something to make me stop feeling, I don't want to be using alcohol. And I think that that's just going to require a check-in with myself for just honesty, because it may be that I don't drink, even a quarter as much as I had done previously in social situations. And I have learned that that's okay, because I have been doing that for all this time. And, everyone respects my boundary because it's like, oh, you're doing this thing. But I realize all I have to do is say, like, I'm not drinking or I'm good. And then there you go. And I don't have to participate if I'm not feeling like I'm in a good headspace with it. So I think it's just going to be a little bit of trying out to see what feels right for me. Because like I said, I do like the taste of alcohol. And I think with food in my stomach, it's appropriate to, reintroduce with a dinner or a couple of friends, or like a low-key situation, I think is something that I will want to have again. But if I do it and it doesn't feel right, I know that I haven't missed anything. I've only gained from removing alcohol for this amount of time. So I feel a little bit anxious about just like what will it be like to reintroduce, because I haven't been intoxicated in so long at all. And hopefully I can manage it in a way, like I said, making sure I'm eating, which is another thing that I wasn't always being cautious of, because if you don't eat and then you start drinking, you don't always feel hungry anymore for at least a long time. And that was an easy thing for me to do. And that I did a lot just because of being worried about calories that alcohol contained for so many years. And that was another thing that just removing that piece made me realize how much alcohol is tied in with diet culture, because it's not something that is even on my radar right now, but just the amount of times that I hear those kinds of conversations about the calories. And of course, being a dietitian, that's a question I get asked a lot. So I've been glad just for my own like relationship with food and body journey in that regard, just having a break from the whole thing so that I can just kind of start fresh with it and in a healthy way. And that is my plan. So all of that to say, we definitely agree that alcohol is part of a healthy lifestyle, but it's not always being used in a healthy way. And so I just really encourage anyone who may have resonated with that in any way, like you're worth taking a break from drinking, or never drinking again, whatever you need. And it's gonna suck, but like it's one of those things that it's gonna get worse before it gets better. And then when it gets better, you're like, why was I not doing this for myself like so long ago? Why did I continue after my body collapsed the first time, But I think we all it takes us time to figure out like where we are and what we need. And I feel very grateful that I didn't burn too many bridges. There are some people in college that stopped talking to me because of my behavior with drinking, but like it is what it is, and I can't beat myself up for that, but just trying to move forward and make sure that I'm having healthy boundaries for myself and my relationships with everyone in my life that have been negatively impacted by my drinking. And just like it's for me, but it's also for everyone that I love as well. So yeah, I'm going to let you talk.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's super powerful just because like we kind of preach the message of like tuning into your body and like doing what's best for it in terms of like nutrition and movement. And like this is an even deeper layer, and like how cool that you have done the work with like your body and food. And now you can like do even deeper work for like your mental health and like your well-being, and like kind of uncover your worth outside of alcohol and outside of like an intoxicated version of yourself, and know that like you're still loved and you're still worthy.
Yeah.
And you're still fun to be around, you know, even without the alcohol.
Thanks for saying that.
And it's like a testament to like who you are as a person, and then like proving also to yourself like how much you matter to people without alcohol, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. And you may not have been able to do that work had you not done any other work, you know, in terms of going to therapy or even like healing from an eating disorder and like, you know, kind of navigating all of that. So I'm really proud of you. And
Thanks.
I think that that story is going to be really impactful for people to hear.
I hope so. There's one other super quick thing that I just thought about when you were talking about like realizing your worth and, you know, getting that feedback from people, like affirmation that like I am still like I had developed this persona of who I was when I was drinking, and it was almost like a character that I allowed myself to be, but I didn't really like her because of, you know, everything that I've just said. Like it wasn't serving me, but it was just, and I knew it wasn't really serving anyone, but it just was like, you know, when you act like that and people think it's funny, like when you're just a certain way, and that made it harder to detach myself from, because even though I was having consequences, I was also getting praised in a sense for some of the things that were going on. And even if that's just bringing people together to laugh about a story, like it does feel like some kind of positive, you know, reward that you're getting. And it was like a piece of me that wasn't really me, just like when you have an eating disorder, like that's not really you. It's just like a piece of you. And so I just wanted to say that too, because it helps when you can, obviously I've done hundreds of hours of therapy that's helped me be able to realize these things as well. But when you are able to put labels on things like that and kind of call it what it is, doesn't mean you have to hate yourself or that all of you is bad. But I do realize that drunk Danielle is not the person that I want, and because that is me, I want to leave that in the past. I want to leave her in the past because I'm worth more than that. So I don't know how I'm not crying my eyes out right now.
No. Maybe it'll hit you later.
And I also, oh my gosh, I keep thinking of things. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has like stood by my side. Like Jenna is obviously one of my best friends and a huge support for me. And I don't know how much of that, you know, our listeners who don't know us both personally can see that, but she's been a huge rock for me throughout this whole process and just always an encourager of that. And all of my other best and closest friends and family, like you guys know who you are, and I just want you to know that I couldn't get through this without all of you. So here's your public shout out that you're all the best. So thank you guys so much for listening to that today. You got a good look at my heart and soul with that, and so, you know, every now and then we got to drop a deep episode on you. So thank you so much for your support as our Fit Feel Free listeners. And if you want to connect with us, follow us at Fit Fueled Free, our joint Instagram account, and then you can find me at dietitian Dani Cast, and Jenna is JenEpFit. And then we have our Gmail account, fitfueledfree@gmail.com, for any questions, comments, or concerns that you may have, and we love to hear from you. So thanks again, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye guys.